How you doing there? Welcome back to Babble on Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Samach Gimel, Daf 63 of Masechta Chullin. Friends, Daf 63. Oh boy, it's actually pretty interesting daf, I'd say. Okay, the first part of Daf 63, we're going to talk a lot about non-kosher birds, which is interesting because obviously the non-kosher birds are more interested than the kosher ones, right? As we saw from the Ramban the other day, we discussed the Ramban al Torah. He says that we don't eat the non-kosher birds because they're savages. They're aggressive. They're hunters. They're killers. We're gonna see those killer birds. You might be surprised by some of them. So we have a lot of slides over here. We're gonna see lots of different kinds of birds, and this daf 63 of Masechta Chullin might change the way you think about birds. It might. It just might change the way you think about birds. They're all savages. They're all savages. Those birds. They're intense. So anyway, we're going to see a lot of these intense birds, and that's kind of the first section of the daf. And then we get into a very technical section about counting the non-kosher birds. Is it 24? Is it not? Whatever. We're getting into that. It's very, very technical. I actually made slides for that as well, just because it might be close to impossible to understand without slides. It's just very, very, it's literally like splitting hairs. It shouldn't be too difficult, but yeah, we're going to have slides to help us out over there. And then there's some kind of final agadatas at the end. So it is a pretty interesting daf between the different kinds of birds, and there's that middle section, which is tricky, but I think with the slides, it should make it manageable, and then some interesting agadatas at the end. So it should be a fun time here at Babble on Talmud. So come, join me, and let's have a great time studying Daf Samach Gimel, Daf 63 of Masechta Chullin. All right, friends, we begin on Daf Samach Gimel, Daf 63 of Masechta Chullin, 2, 4, 5 lines into the Amid. Rav Yehuda says, Rav Yehuda, Shalach ze hashole dogim min hayom duchifas shehodo kafus. Okay, so again, it says, so when the pasuk, so as I said, we're going to be going through these non-kosher birds, and we are going to be discussing them. So it says Rav Yehuda that says that the shalach stands for zesh ashole dagim min hayom, that it kind of fishes and hunts fish from the sea. So I have a slide of what that actually is. Basically, we could basically run through this stuff really fast and just say, okay, it's the ashole dagim min hayom, and let's go weiter. But we can also learn a little bit about birds, which I think is cool, right? Everything's in the Rebbeinu Shalom's Torah. We could blow through it, or we can mamish have a look at these birds and see what's out there. Oh wow, it's a surprising world. Anyways, so the shole dagim and ayam is what is this cormorant bird. You ever heard of this cormorant bird? This thing is nuts. So there it is on the side, on the left side. That's like the cormorant bird. Maybe I could make it a little bigger. Anyways, I'll see. Maybe I'll make it bigger. Maybe I'll leave it that way. That's the cormorant bird. Looks pretty okay. On the right, I gave you a pretty easy. It's not that big of a deal. But on the right, you see this bird basically fishing out fish from the sea. This is a pretty civilized photos. Basically, what this bird does, I've seen videos of it. Just goes up to you'll have a person that has some fish in a bucket. It'll just fly right down to the bucket and just start picking out fish, and it just swallows them whole, right? All these birds, all these big birds, they don't have hands. They don't have teeth. They just use their beak and just get these live fish that are squigging around and just get them down their hatch. Anyways, apparently I saw some videos in China or Japan or something. They actually fish with these birds. You see these fishermen going out on their fishing boats, and they have a bunch of these birds, and they're specially trained or whatever. They go down and they go fishing, and they come back up to the surface with a fish, and before they can eat it, the fisherman just grabs it with its net, with a net. Anyways, this is the cormorant. This is the shalach. Is ashole dagim min hayom, that it just fishes fish from the sea. Anyways, then there's the duchifas. The duchifas is shehodo kafus, that it's, thing is folded over. Let's take a look. So Rashi says something here. Rashi says some kind of a chicken or rooster or something, but al Torah he says that it's this hoopoe bird. So it's so notice how on the left image the thing on top of his head, it's like kind of folded up. Whereas on the right, it's open and expanded, right? So that's what we said. So duchifas shehodo kafus. I don't know what hodo is. Maybe it's glory. I don't know, but it's folded up. So you see on the left there, it's folded up, but it could also expand. So that is the duchifas. Duchifas shehodo kafus. That the duchifas is this bird that we just described. V'zeu she'evi shamir lebeis hamikdash. And that is how they got the shamir to the Beis Hamikdash. If you remember from Masechta Gittin, it discussed how when building, right, because when the stones of the Beis Hamikdash, right, was it low something esen gazis, right? Ki charbo lo, and after Allah vatchalel, I just like butchered that pasuk, but like basically, right, you can't like use like tools and stuff on the stones of the Beis Hamikdash, so they used the certainly at least not the mizbeach. So anyways, so they use this worm that would like be able to like break apart these stones, and it was this bird that was responsible for bringing over the shamir worm. Reb Yechanan ki ava chazi shalach, when Reb Yechanan would see this shalach, this cormorant bird, whatever. So Amri would say mishpatecha toim rabba, that your justice goes deep in the sea, because this cormorant bird dives deep in the sea and serves justice to whoever's time has come. And when he would see an ant, that your righteousness is like the mountains. I think something to do with like even to the great mountains, to the tiniest ant. The Rebbeinu Shalom takes care of everybody. Amar Meimer says a Meimer lakone uvotne sharion. So it says a Meimer, the lakone and the botne are permitted. Shaknoe uvatnoe. And in terms of the shaknoi and the batnoi, makam shinagu lecho ochlim. So in a place where the minig is to eat the shaknoi and the batnoi, so they eat them. Makam shinagu shlo lechol ein ochlim. And a place where the minig is not to eat them, we don't eat these birds. I don't understand why is this dependent on minig? Either it's mutter or it's asr. Either it's included in the list of 24 or it's not. So, yes, it is dependent on minhag. I'll tell you why. Yesterday I was saying paras v'oznia. That was a mistake. It's possible even for the past 2 days I was saying paras v'oznia. It's paras v'oznia. So it depends. So this machlekes Rashi and Tosfos is exactly what this means. Rashi says that in a place where paras and oznias are found, are around, so there we have to be concerned that these birds might actually be one of those, might actually be a type of paras or oznia. Tosfos says that no, if there's a real possibility that these are actually a paras and oznia, then it doesn't matter where you are. Rather, Tosfos says no, these birds are not paras and oznia, just that they do look similar to paras and oznia, and we don't want anybody to get confused. So in a place where there is paras and oznia, we don't eat them. But if there are no paras and oznias around, so then we can eat them. Amar Abai says, Abai, koe v'kakoe asiri, that the koe and the kakoe are not allowed. Kakoasa sharia, the kakoasa is allowed. The mayrava malkui lave, and in Eretz Yisrael they would give makis for the kakoasa v'karle tachvasa. Okay, fine. I don't think that I have anything to show you yet. Yeah, I don't think I have anything to show you, unless I forgot what things are called. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught tinshames ba'us shebe'ofis, that the tinshames, which is also one of the 24, is the ba'us shebe'ofis. Atomer ba'us shebe'ofis. Is it? We're going to explain what it is soon. Is it the ba'us of the birds, or maybe it's the ba'us of the shratzim, because tinshames is both by birds as well as by sheritzes, as by like creepy crawling sheritzes. So Omar Tseir Lamad Yud Gimel Midas Shator Nejeshes Ben. Well, it's learned out from the Yud Gimel Midos Shator Nejeshes Ben. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, Dover Alamed Ben Yano, right, all the way at the end of the Rabbi Shmuel Omer. Dover Alamed Ben Yano, v'Dover Alamed Misofo, v'Chen Shnei Chsubim, etc. So Dover Alamed, something that's learned Ben Yano from its context. So the tinshames that we're talking about here, in the context of the birds, is talking about a bird. What's the puzzle talking about? Be'ofis, birds. So Afkan be'ofis, the Tinchemis is talking about birds. It's not talking about sheritzes. And we learned similarly by the sheritzes. Shrotzim ki agavna. Tinchemis, when it comes to Tinchemis, by the sheritzes, bows is the bows shebeshrotzim. Ata omer bows shebeshrotzim. And the bows shebe'ofis. Maybe it's talking about the birds, not the sheritzes. I might say so you will learn it out from the davar halamed mi'inyano, from the context. What's it talking about? B'shrotzim. Sheritzes, Avkan b'shrotzim. See here also, it's talking about sheritzes. So basically, it says tinshamis, right? Yeah, it says tinshamis both by birds as well as by creepy crawling sheritzes. So the one in the context of the creepy crawling sheritzes is a creepy crawling sheretz. The one in the context of birds is a bird, is a flying thing. Amar Abai says, Abai ba'us shebe'ofis kipif. Says Abai that the ba'us of the birds is the kipuf. Rashi gives two possibilities for what that is. The first one is an owl, but he prefers to say that it is a bat. Ba'us shebeshrotzim korpadoi, and the ba'us of creepy crawling things is a mole. Rav says, Rav ka'os ze a cook. A ka'os is a cook. What is that? A pelican. You know what a pelican is? Here's a pelican. This is a pelican. I'm sure you've seen a pelican before. Looks like a sweet little bird, right? It's not a sweet little bird. It's not. It's a nasty little bird. It looks sweet. It's probably in cartoons and everything like that. I'm sure he's a nice guy in the cartoons. But you see where the red arrow is pointing to? That's this like sack thing that it has underneath its beak. You don't want to go into that sack. If you go into that sack, you're going down the hatch. The pelican, it will go and get like a little baby duck. It'll find like a little baby duck and just snatch it. Again, these birds, they don't have arms. They don't have teeth. They'll just go and like pick it out. And now starts like the contest between the pelican and the little baby duck. The pelican's now just trying to like get it into its little sack there between its mouth. And it's like open. You got a baby duck like wriggling around trying to figure out why it's in the mouth of a pelican. And the pelican is then like trying to get it down its hatch until he finally succeeds and he gets it down the hatch. And you know what then the pelican does? This is why it's called a ka'as, a vomiter. The pelican, once he's already swallowed the little duck or whatever else it is that it just snatched and swallowed alive and whole, it goes down to its belly and starts digesting it. But before it's done digesting it, and it's digesting it while it's alive. So it then flies home to all of its little kiddos that need to be fed, and it regurgitates out the digesting duck or whatever else it ate that's still alive, and this gross little duck comes out of its stomach and it feeds its kids with that duck. That's a pelican for you. We don't eat pelicans. All right, so that's why it's called the ka'as, because it vomits out, regurgitates its little ducks that it eats. Racham ze shrakrak, and the racham is the shrakrak. So this is actually an interesting one. It's actually a real beautiful bird. It's the roller bird. How beautiful is that? That's the roller bird. Amr B'Yochanan says, racham. Why is it called the racham? Kevan sheba racham, because when this roller bird comes, bo rachamim le'olam, comes mercy to the world, comes rain. Amr Bivi bar Abaye v'Udi Yosef amidi. But that is if the roller bird is sitting on something. You see, in this photo, I think the roller bird is basically standing. Is it sitting or is it standing? How can you tell if it's sitting or not? I think that's probably standing. Sitting is probably maybe on its stomach or something. Maybe like if it was like sitting on eggs, I don't know. So if it is sitting on something, the ovid strakrak, and it's making its like bird noise, so then that's an indication it's a harbinger of rain. Vigmiri di'i Yoseva Ara Visharik also Mashicha. We can use that right about now. And we learn that if this roller bird is sitting on the land, on the ground, and it is making its bird noises, Mashiach is coming. It's a harbinger. I hope I pronounced that right. It's a harbinger of the Messiah. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Eshrika loim vakabtim. The pasuk in Zechariah says, I will bird noise to them, I will whistle to them, and I will gather them. So this is a reference to this roller bird that's on the ground making its whistling, and then Mashiach is going to come. Amalei Rav Ada bar Shimi le Mar bar Rav Idoi v'Aud Yosef ki Karba. But 1 second, there was once a roller bird that was sitting on a plowed field, and Visharak, and it was whistling, and we were ready for the Messiah to come. V'asa Galal Afsike lemoche, and came a rock and landed on its brain, and that was the end of the roller bird and its calling. Amalei, to which Mar bar Rav Idai said, Hau baidahava. That roller bird was a liar. Okay. Tanabana the Rabbi said, Orev ze Orev. That in Orev is in Orev. Eskol Orev lahavi Oreva imki. That's going to include the imki, the deep Orev. Lemino lahavi Orev abab biroshe yonim, and Lemino is coming to include the Orev that comes at the head of the pigeons. Amar, we said, Orev ze Orev, atukam and koi. What does it mean, Orev ze Orev? That an Orev is an Orev. I mean, are you showing something? Like, how are we supposed to know what that means? So Ella ema Orev ze Orev uchma ukama. So Orev, it's a black Orev. So Orev seems to be a crow. Orev seems to be a crow. So it is a black crow. V'cheinu omer, similarly it says, kvutzosav taltalim shchayris ka'orev, that his locks are curls and they're black like an Orev, like a black crow, I guess. Ha'imki chivara, the Orev ha'imki is a white. It has like a white, a crow that has like a white streak on it. I feel like the crows around here have that. I'd have to check. I think they do. And similarly, it says, Umar Ehu amok min haor, right? Imki amok is white because it's like it says by tsaras that if the appearance of the tsaras is deeper than the skin, and that's a reference. Kimara chama amukam and etzel. It's a reference to if it's white, just like when you have sun, you have shade. The sun looks like it's deeper than the shade. And the crow that comes at the head of the pigeons, rather it means that its head is similar to that of a yona, to that of a pigeon. Hanetz ze hanetz. That when it says nates, that's a nates, which is a hawk, a type of hawk. Limineu la'avi bar chirya. My bar chirya, what's a bar chirya? Amabai shurinka. Says Abai, it's the shurinka. What's the shurinka? It's the shrike bird. Chevra, look, here's a shrike bird. Looks like a cute little bird, right? Come on, what's that going to do to you? Little tiny cute little bird. What can it possibly do? Look a little bit closer at this photo, friends. Notice what that bird is standing on. Would you want to be impaled by any of those thorns on that thorn bush? This cute little bird catches. This is the clean version of the shrike bird. I could have gotten you some nasty photos. This little cute little bird will hunt like lizards, mice, little creepy creatures, maybe little even birds, whatever, bugs, things like that. It'll take these little creatures and it'll impale them on these thorns that it's standing on. It'll be thorns, it can be barbed wire, it'll find sharp things because it's a small little bird, so it can't really hold it down to eat it, right? So it'll basically just take it and it'll impale it in some kind of a thorn, and it'll have a whole collection of like impaled carcasses, and then it'll just eat it at its leisure. That's this little cute little shrike bird. We don't eat that. Omar Rav Yehuda says, Rav Yehuda, a chasida, the famous chasida, zo daya levana. It's a daya levana. It's a stork. Chasida, why is it called chasida? Shows a chasida simcha, because it does good stuff with its friends. It's nice with its friends. Well, I'll tell you something. Storks are not very nice. This is a stork right here. You know, and in all the cartoons, the stork is always like Mazel Tov. Somebody has a baby, right? The stork comes and delivers the baby to the mother. This stork is a nasty bird over here. This stork, you see it's got its little babies there in the nest with it. If any of those babies are not developing properly, it's gonna push it out of the nest. It's gonna basically kill it. And if it doesn't want to go, it's gonna stab it with its beak. I saw a video of it. The stork, it basically just, it stabs. It's like if one of its babies are not developing, it'll just kill it. It'll just stab it with his beak and like push it out of the nest. I don't know. It doesn't sound like chesed and chavoseh to me. Yeah, maybe with its friends, not with its kids. Ha'anafa zo daya ragzonis. That's the daya ragzonis. Lama nikres shema anafa shemina efes im chavoseh. This is a very violent, a very aggressive type of bird, and this is the heron. You see that heron? Looks like a nice little bird, right? Walking around in the grass. Notice that beak? That beak is like a spear. It's like it's ridiculously sharp. That heron is looking to impale a chipmunk or something, or a muskrat, or a gopher. That beak is going to impale some unsuspecting little guy, and then start putting it down his hatch alive. These birds, I don't blame them. They don't have arms, they don't have teeth. They just got to like impale their prey and just get it down their hatch. But sheesh, that's nasty business. Yeah, I understand. Well, yeah, says the Rambam, we don't want that. Us sensitive Yidden, we don't want that in our blood. We don't need any heron vibes in our blood. Oh boy. Well, Chevra, that kind of wraps up our exploration of the non-kosher birds. I hope it was insightful. How does it affect your? Has it any? How do you think about birds now? Does it have any effect on the way you think about these cute little birds? Oh my, they're all very aggressive. All right, friends. Now we move on to the next section of today's daf, where we are going to be discussing the count of the tamei birds. We've said that there are 24 of them. We are going to analyze and scrutinize that count. It is quite technical. Without slides, I think it would be almost impossible, but I have some slides that are going to help us. I think with the slides, it should really be manageable. Okay. Now, Amr Rav Chanan bar Rav Chizde, says Rav Chanan bar Rav Chizde, Rav Chizde's son Rav Chanan. Amr Rav Chizde, Amr Rav Chanan brei de Rave, Amar Rab. Esim v'arbaya ofis tamein hein. There are 24, as we've been discussing, there are 24 tamei birds. Amar le Rav Chanan bar Rav Chizde le Rav Chizde. So Rav Chizde's son Rav Chanan says to Rav Chizde, Deheicha. Where are these? Where are these 24 tamei birds? Ide vayikra esumav. In Sefer Vayikra, Parsha Shmini, count them, 20. Ide Mishnah Torah, if in Sefer Devarim, Parsha Re'eh, Esem v'chadav, 21. Not 24. V'chi tema da'a tichsiva b'vayikra. And if you can say, okay, fine. So we have 21 in Parshas Re'eh, in Sefer Devarim, and we have 20 in Vayikra. Now the thing is, in Vayikra, there is the da'a. And the da'a is not written in Devarim. So we can, so take the da'a and add it to the 21 in Devarim. Right, so v'chidem da'a dichsiv Vayikra v'lo ksiv b'Mishnah Torah. It's written in Vayikra, it's not written in Devarim. Shaja ilave and add it to the 21 in Devarim. Akati esim v'treinav. Okay, so that gets us up 1. So up to 22. It's too short of 24. Where's 24 coming from? Amar lei. So says Rav Chizde to his son Rav Chanan, Hachi Amar avua deimech. This is what your Zayda said. This is what the father of your mother, i.e. Rav Chisda's father-in-law, who was Rav Chanan bar Rava, that we had mentioned earlier. Interesting that Rav Chisda's father-in-law was Rav Chanan bar Rava, because Rav Chisda's son-in-law was Rava. So clearly Rav Chanan bar Rava was older than Rava. Interesting. Clearly must not have been Rava's son. Anyways, this is what your grandfather said, Rav Chanan bar Rava, Mishmei de Rab, in the name of Rab, that in Sefer Vayikra, it says these four, it says limina, 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 limineu. By four of the birds in Sefer Vayikra, right next to four of the birds, it says limina, another time limina, another time limino, another time limineu. Right? Quickly just give you one example. Limina, for example. So there are three other examples like that. It says limina, another time limina, one other time it says limino, and in the fourth example it says limineu. Hare kan arba. So now you have an additional 4. So we have 21 in Sefer Devarim. We're adding the da'ah, which is in Vayikra and is not in Devarim. So now we're up to 22. And now from limina, limineu, that's another 4. So Yochli Esim V'Shisavu. Okay, but now we've overshot it. Before we were too low by 2, now we're too high by 2. We're at 22, now we're at 26. We need to be right in the middle, 24. Omar Abai says, Abai, da'a v'ra'a achas hi. Okay. All right, here we go. So now we need a slide. Without a slide, it's going to be too difficult. Okay. So here's the slide. It's a pretty simple slide, but it's very, very necessary. So you see on the top line of the slide, it says Vayikra, and it says Da'a, and it says Ayah. And then in Devarim, it says Ra'a, Ayah, and Daya. That's because these are birds that appear differently between Vayikra and Devarim. Okay? That in both Vayikra and Devarim, it says Ayah, right? Which is why they are both in white, because they're the same. Okay? However, in Vayikra it says Da'a. It doesn't say that in Devarim. And in Devarim it says Ra'a and it says Daya, neither of which exist in Vayikra. So these are differences. So now, we had initially said, take the Da'a. So we had said that in Devarim, there are 21. Okay? We had then said, take the Da'a from Vayikra and add it to the 21, then we get to 22. We had then said, limineu, add another 4. We got up to 26. We overshot it by 2. Comes Abai and he says, well, if you look at the slide, right, so Vayikra and Devarim, it says Da'a in Vayikra, and it says Ra'a in Devarim. Says Abaye, here, look at the next slide. Merge the Da'a and Ra, they're both red now. Da'a and Ra are actually the same min, at the very least, right? It's the same bird or the same type of bird, but it's a reference to the same thing. So you can merge together Da'a and Ra'a. So now, instead of having Da'a and Ra'a being separate, so instead of having 26, you merge together Da'a and Ra'a because they're the same thing. So now you're down to 25. Okay? So now if you look at the two psukim, so you have Da'a and Ra'a are the same, Ayah and Ayah are the same, and then you have the Daya. So we merged two of them, and we're down from 26 to 25. So again, Amar Abai says, Abai, Da'a v'Ra'a achasi. Da'a and Ra'a are the Zelbazach are the same. The Isakadaitech tartin inun, because if it enters your mind that Da'a and Ra'a are different birds, Michdei. Well, let's see. Mishnah Torah la'asufe hu da'asa. The mention of the kosher animals and birds and everything in Sefer Devarim is coming to add something, right? I mean, we already learned about the kosher birds and animals in Sefer Vayikra, in Parashat Shmini. Moshe is repeating them now, doing a chazara on them in Mishnah Torah, in Sefer Devarim, his last messages, his parting messages, his last announcement, proclamations. I don't know. What's the word? His last, I don't know, impartations with the Yidden, right, before they're going to continue on to Eretz Yisrael, and he's not going to be able to join them. Anyways, so he's going over in Parshas, in Sefer Devarim, he's got to be adding something which was absent in Vayikra. So Mishnah Torah laosufei udasa. Mishnah Torah is coming to add on to what was in Vayikra. Mishnah Torah, of course, is Devarim. So Maishna Acha Dechsiv Da'a Umaishna Acha Dechsiv Ra'a V'lo Ksiv Da'a. So how could it be if Devarim is coming to add on to Vayikra? So how could it be that in Devarim it says Ra'a, but it leaves out Da'a? So rather, Elish Mamina min Ra'a V'Da'a Achasi. No, he's not leaving anything out in Devarim. Rather, the Da'a and the Ra'a are the same thing as we saw before, and as you can see in the slide, Da'a and Ra are both in red, Aya and Aya, of course, are both in white, and then there is the Daya. Okay, great, fine. So we managed to knock down 26 to 25, but we're still at 25. We need to get to 24. Amr Abaye, says Abaye, Kishem Shera'a V'Da'a Achasi, just like we had said that Da'a and Ra'a are the same, Kach Aya V'Daya Achas Hi. So Aya and Daya are also the same. So now here's the next slide. So here we see that now we went from having 4 colors, as you see in this slide, we then merged it down to 3, and then we merged those 3 down to 2, and now you see that the Da and Ra are both the same, which is why they're both in red, and the Aya and the Daya are the same as well, which is why they're in white. So we went from 26 down to 25, and then down to 24. Because if you're going to tell me that the Aya and the Daya are separate, are different, are independent, Mishnah Torah lo sufi u'da'asa, right? Mishnah Torah is going to add on to Vayikra. Mashna Ocha Dechsiv Limina Aya. In Vayikra, next to Aya, it says Limina. Umashna Hasam, but in Devarim, Dechsiv Limina Adaya. Right, it says Aya and Daya, and then it says Limina. So if you say that Aya and Daya are separate, then why would in Vayikra would it say Aya Limina, but then in Devarim it says Aya, but it doesn't say Limina, and then it says Daya and it says Limina. Why is Limina on Daya? Shouldn't it be on Aya like it was in Vayikra? So rather it must be that Aya and Daya are the same, and therefore Aya Limina and Daya Limina are essentially the same. Elish Mamina Aya V'Daya Achas Hi. Okay, so again, looking at the slide, we see that there are really just 2 colors, i.e. 2 minim there. Da and Ra are the same. Aya and Daya are the same. We are down to 24. Well, if Aya and Daya are the same, then why not just write one of them? Why confuse things? Why write Aya and Daya if they're really the same thing? Kedetani, like we learn in a Braisa, Rabbi Omer says, Rabbi, Ekra ani Aya, Daya laman emra. Rabbi asks our exact question. Just write Aya. Why do you need Daya if they're the same thing? Kidei shelo titen pischin peh livalden nachlok. So that nobody should have any excuse to be cholik. What does that mean? Shalote ata kore aya vu kore daya, because you'll have somebody who, where he lives, this bird is called a daya, and he's going to be eating it, and you're going to say, hey, you're not allowed to eat that. That's an aya bird. He says, no, aya is not allowed. This is a daya bird. So ata kore daya vu kore aya. L'chach kosav Mishnah Torah ve'hara'a. Where am I? Ve'esa aya ve'esa daya lemina. So that's why it says aya and daya, because to cover all the bases. So that this person who calls the bird the daya would not be eating it, because it says that you're not allowed to eat the daya. If it only say the aya, he might say, well, this is not the aya, it's the daya. But by saying all of the names, everything's going to be crystal clear, and nobody's going to be eating this aya daya bird. I am going to drink some tea. The aya, by the way, is a vulture, but I'm not going to stop our flow right now to look at a vulture. We're going to look at a vulture in a little bit. Meisvei, we have a contradiction. Lama nishnu bibehema. Why, if we already mentioned in Sefer Vayikra all of the animals that right? If we already mentioned in Sefer Vayikra the animals that you're allowed to eat, why did we mention it again? Or the animals that you're not allowed to eat? So then why do we mention again in Devarim? If we already mentioned it in Vayikra, Mipnei Ashesua. Right? We mentioned the other day the Shesua, that the Shesua is an animal that has two spines and two spines and something else's. Yes, the Shesua has two backs and two spines. With an office, Mipnei Ara, and by the bird because of the Ra'ah. My lab mi de behema dehasam le osufe. So just like by the animals, it's coming to add the Shesua, which was not mentioned in Vayikra. So office nami le osufe. So where am I? Office nami le osufe. So therefore, office must be adding something, right? We had essentially said in Vayikra it says da'a and ayah, and in Devarim it says ra'ah, which is da'a, and it says ayah and daya, which is ayah. So basically, you're not adding anything. Nothing's being added then in Devarim. Lo hasam lo osufe acha lefarushe. No, when it comes to the non-kosher animals, yes, we were adding the Shesua. When it comes to the non-kosher birds, however, it's just explaining the da'a could also be ra'ah and ayah could also be daya. Okay, fine. Ufliga de Rababo. Now this argues with Rababo. How so? Rababo, because Rababo says ra'ah zo ayah. Because Rababo says that the ra'ah is the ayah. So let's see, what slide do we have here? Okay. So now here's the thing. So according to Babble, if you look at the Ra, which is in Sefer Devarim, so he says that the Ra is the same thing as the Ayah. And we know that the Ayah is the same thing as the Daya. Now, if we're still trying to maintain 24, and we're saying that the Ra is the same thing as the Ayah, well then, in order to be able to maintain 24, then the Da is going to have to be separate. Right? We had said before that essentially the Da and the Ra are the same, and the Ayah and the Daya are the same. But now we're saying that the Ra and the Ayah and the Daya are the same. If you say that Ra is the same thing as Da, well then essentially everything is just all the same. But if everything is all the same, then we're merging from 4 down to 1, which means we're going from 26 down to 23. But we need to be 24. So therefore, in order for a boat to make sense, because he's saying the Ra and the Ayah are the same, so then Da is going to have to be different. It can't be the same thing as the Ra'ah then, which is what we had said earlier. Ra zo ayah, that Ra is the same thing as ayah. V'lama nikra shma Ra, and why is it called Ra? Sheroe biyoser, because it sees really far. And the Apostle says in Eov, Nasiv lo yadu ayit, that it's a path that no bird of prey knew. Velo shizafatu ein ayah, and the eye of the vulture never saw it. Tana omedes beBabble v'nevela beretz Yisrael. A vulture can be in Babble and see a carcass in Eretz Yisrael. Let's look at a vulture for a second. So this is a vulture there on the left side, perched on a branch. It's kind of a freaky creature there, bird. Yeah, just massive bird. Anyways, the vultures are super important because they're like the cleanup crew of the safari and everything. They play a super important role. So like lions will like kill like a zebra or something, I guess. And they'll take a few bites of it, whatever. Maybe hyenas will get to it or something. But then the zebra's just like kind of lying there and rotting and stuff. And disease can spread. But the vultures come. These vultures, they have like stomachs made of like, they can handle anything. They can handle like anything at any level of decay or something. And these vultures just come and they like swarm. There's like a million vultures there. They just try to get in there, and the vultures come and they clean the thing up. They even eat, there are vultures that even eat bones and everything like that. Anyways, so these so says the Gemara that these vultures, they could be in Babble and spot a nevela in Eretz Yisrael, and they will go and take care of that nevela. Now, if we're saying that the ra'ah is the ayah, michlal de da'ah lav ainu ra'ah, then that means that the da'ah, as we said earlier, cannot be the ra'ah, because if they're all the same, then we're merging from 4 into 1, and we're going to be down from 26 to 23. We need to maintain 24. But michtei, frakti gemara, that can't be, because Mishnah Torah, lo sufi da'asa. Mishnah Torah, as we said, is coming to add on to Vayikra. So mashna hacha d'chsiv da'a, umashna hasam d'lo chsiv da'a. How could it be that it says da'a in Vayikra and it doesn't say da'a in Devarim? That can't be. Devarim is going to add on to Vayikra. Elav shmamina, rather it must be da'a v'ra'a v'aya achasi. So rather it must be that no, the da'a and the ra'a and the ayah are all the same. So yeah, as you can see in this slide now, we've made all those the same. Da'a, ayah, ra'a, they're all the same, which then would mean that the daya is different then. Because again, we have to maintain 24. Umi de ra'a hanu ayah, michlal de daya lav hanu ayah, which would mean that the daya, as you can see in the slide, is not the ayah. We had said earlier that it was the ayah. But maishna asan v'chsiv limineu ayah, umashta acha t'lo chsiv limineu ayah ela adayah. But as we asked earlier, in Vayikra it says limina by ayah, and in Devarim it says limina by daya. Shouldn't it have to say limina by ayah in Devarim? So ela shmamina da'a v'ra'a daya v'aya achasi, and with that we're done with the difficult part. Rather, it must be, and this is the conclusion according to Babble, that da'a, ra'a, ayah, daya, they're all the same. But then, if we're merging 4 into 1, then we're going down from 26 to 23, right? So, right, that's correct. Rabbi Babble disagrees. Rav had said that there are 24 non-kosher birds. Rabbi Babble disagrees. He says that there are actually 23. Okay, Givaldic. Okay, and now we get to some kind of like agadata type things until the end of the daf. Tanya, we learn in the Brisa, Isa ben Yehuda Omer, Mea Ofis Tmein, there are Yesh b'Mizrach, there are 100 Tamei birds in the east. Where's that, in Eretz Yisrael? I don't know. In the east. V'chulan min ayahen, and they're all types, all these 100 are types of ayahs, types of vultures. Tanya Avimi Brei Dababo, Avimi Brei Dababo taught, Zayin Meos Mine Dogim Hein, there are 700 types of non-kosher fish. Kosher fish are basically like salmon, right? I don't know, not exactly, but yeah. You go to like a sushi restaurant or something, like, you know, those, they have all sorts of stuff. There's we eat kind of like a subset of fish, but there are 700 other types of fish that we don't eat. And 800 types of grasshoppers. I don't need to eat those grasshoppers. Villa Ofis, and when it comes to birds, Ein Mispar, there's unlimited amounts. Ofis Chavdalarav, I thought we said there's only 24 Tamei Ofis. Ella the Ofis Tahorim Ein Mispar. There's unlimited amounts of tahor birds. Tanya Rabbi Yossi says Yossi. No, Tanya Rabbi Omer says Rabbi. It is known to the Rabban Shalom shebehema tmeya meruba min hatahoros, that there are more non-kosher animals than there are kosher animals. L'chachmona kosov batahora. Therefore, the pasuk counted the tahor ones. In Sefer Devarim, in Parshas Re'eh, there is a list of 8 kosher animals. That there are more tahor birds, as we just said, there are unlimited tahor birds than there are tamei ones. That is why the pasuk chose to count the 24 tamei ones in that case. My Kamashman, what's the teaching us? The kid Rav Huna, Amar Rav, Amila, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav Mishum Reb Meir, Le'olam Yeshane Adam Tamido Derech Tzar. Always a teacher should teach his pupil in a concise way. Therefore, if we could say, these are the 8 kosher animals, and that's it, you just need to know these 8, or these are the 24 non-kosher birds, just know these 24, there's no more, no less. So that would be a, package it in ways that can be kind of easily comprehended. And Rabbi Yitzchak says, Oftar nechol b'masores. that a kosher bird is eaten if there is a tradition to eat that bird. Nemanatzayid lomar, a hunter, or I mean, we don't really hunt, but maybe like a trapper, is believed to say, Of zet tahor masor li Rebbe, that this is a kosher bird. My teacher has passed down to me the tradition that this is a kosher bird. Amr Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan, Vusha Baki Boyen Vishmosein. Now, his teacher has to be Baki Boyen, has to be an expert in them and in their names. By Reb Zera asks, Rabbi Chacham or Rabbi Tzayid? Very interesting question. Reb Zera says, when this hunter is talking about his Rebbe gave him a masoros for this particular bird, excuse me, let me chap a shtickle tea. We're talking about his hunting teacher, or we're talking about his Rosh Yeshiva? Or we're talking about a Rav, or we're talking about a hunter? Tashma, coming here, the Amr Yochanan had said, this is very, very, very interesting to me, friends. Vushabaki Boyenu Vishmosei. Well, Rabbi Yochanan had said that he has to be an expert, not just on what their names are. You can figure out the names in the Beis HaMedrash, but you have to be Baki Bahen in what they actually are. I understand if we're talking about his mentor, his hunting teacher, instructor, Shapir, Givaldi. Eli Amr Rabo Chacham, but if you're telling me about his Rosh Yeshiva, Bishlama Shmayu Nagidlu Gamirlu. Okay, fine. His Rosh Yeshiva could maybe know every single possible name for this bird, sure. But Ele Inu, but to know them, and to be able to have the experience of seeing every single bird that there is and interacting and working with every bird that there is, and to say this is this and that is that and I've seen this and I've seen that. Ela inu miyadalu ela lav shmamina rabu tzayid shmamina. The Rosh Yeshiva can know about all the names. He could have read all the books. But the actual experience to be able to identify and to actually see in practice, which is why we have all these slides here at Babble on Talmud, right? Because it doesn't replace, not even close to actual experience. But the point is that visualizing things, seeing things, when you can actually interact with things, whatever. That's why I have the slides without, it brings it to life. But the real thing is to be a shaychit, to go to shchitas, to see the pictures worth 1,000 words, or whatever that is, right? To actually have the experience is practically speaking is a totally different story, is a lot more valuable in that sense. And therefore, since Rabbi Yochanan says inu ves shmosein, that Rebbeinu v'shmosein, that you have to actually have the experience with them, so that only his hunting instructor can have, which is super interesting, right? Meaning, we learn something very interesting, that in order to that you can't really replace expert experience, right? That to really know something, right, for this Masoros, and if we really want to know what these birds are, it's not enough to just rely on the books and stuff. We have to go out and speak to the people with the experience, and in order to understand how to paskin and understand what's kosher and what's not. Very, very interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it feels like, this is like way out of my league, but it just feels obvious to me that like there's nafkaminas for like paskining medical shilas or whatever. If a Rav is going to paskin a medical shaila, that he should be able to either, like I was once watching this documentary about Rav David Feinstein, very interesting, you can find that on YouTube. Rav David Feinstein, he had, if you went to his house, he had binders of medical journals. He read medical journals in order to understand the topics. I have to imagine he probably also consulted with, I think Dafka, he read the medical journals so that he could speak with doctors and be able to understand the thing. But the point is to consult, either become an expert yourself or I guess the point is that you can't really replace experience, but the point is to, I have to imagine of David Feinstein, it seems like he was the type of person that probably did consult with the experts. And consult with the experts, consult with the people who really know from the experience, and not just to rely upon what you read or something, but to get expert opinions. Super, I don't know. That's what kind of struck me when I saw it. I thought it was super interesting. Friends, that was Daf Samach Gimel, Daf 63 of Masechta Chullin. I thought that Daf 63 was a pretty interesting Daf. The first part, we learned a lot about non-kosher birds. We saw lots of different types of birds. We saw what they looked like. We discussed them and how aggressive they are and how we can understand why the Ramban says that we don't want to be putting that energy into our bodies. We then discussed the counting of the non-kosher birds. Rabbit said that there are 24 non-kosher birds. We're trying to figure out how do we come up with 24. After all, in Vayikra there's 20, in Bamidbar there's 21. How do we get to 24? Anyways, we managed to get to 24, but then Rababo kind of threw a curveball into things, and we ended up understanding that according to Babble, he holds that there are 23 rather than 24. And then we had some kind of final agadatas there at the end, including, for example, that there are unlimited kosher birds, which is interesting, and also le'olam yeshana adam l'tamido derech kitzara, to teach things concisely. And finally, the very interesting thing at the end about relying upon the experience of the expert hunter, that you can't really replace experience in terms of getting to know the actual, materials that you're working with. Friends, that was Daf Samach Gimel, Daf 63 of Masechet Chullin. Hope you enjoyed. Have a great day. Cheers.